Hi, welcome to section 4-1. Our lesson topic today is how to prepare a chart of accounts. On your screen, you'll notice that we are looking at an example of a chart of accounts. We have familiar account titles here. We have many assets that we've been working with. We have some liabilities. We have owner's equity account titles. We have revenue. We also have several expense account titles that we've been working with so far. So a chart of accounts, it's kind of a place that lists all of the account titles that we have access to when we are working with transactions. Okay, it's almost like a word bank of all the account titles that you can pick and choose from. Okay, but as you're creating a chart of accounts, there is a specific order that these account titles are listed in. You'll notice that every account title has a number next to it. That means that is called an account number. So every account title has an account number. Okay, just kind of like every student has a student ID, every person has a social security number, we are going to give every account title an account number. And they are listed in a specific order. For example, you can see assets are first, followed by liabilities, owner's equities, then revenues, and then expenses. Okay? So, back to what we were just looking at, you'll notice that all the asset accounts had the number 1 in front of them. All the liabilities had the number 2 in front of them. The owner's equity accounts had the number 3. Revenues all had the number 4. And expenses all had the number 5. So I'm going to go back to that for a second so you can see exactly what I'm referring to. Okay? So the first number of every account number, that refers to the ledger division. In other words, if it's an asset, it begins with the number 1. If it's a liability, it should begin with the number 2, and then so on and so on, as you can see on the list below. Okay? The second two numbers refer to the location within the ledger, the general ledger division. In other words, the order that these account titles are in. Okay? So you're going to get very familiar with these account numbers. Some of them you might very well memorize over time. And you're going to have to get just used to the fact that when you see anything that begins with the number 1, it's an asset. Begins with the number 2, it's a liability. Begins with the number 3, it's owner's equity. If it's the number 4, it's a revenue account. And if it's the number 5, it's an expense account number. Okay? Another part of section 4-1 is we're now introduced to what is called a general ledger. Okay? A general ledger kind of looks familiar. It might look a little bit much like the journals that we were introduced to in Chapter 3. The difference here is that we now have a balance columns in the far right that we're now going to have to start completing. Okay. Above that, you'll now see we have an account number placed because every account title has an account number, and the account titles are on the left. So whenever you're given a blank general ledger, and it needs to be open. It has to be given a purpose. There's 2 steps to opening up a general ledger. The first thing is to give it an account title, which goes in the upper left. And then the second step is to assign it an account number, which goes in the upper right. And this is all a part of file maintenance. Okay, file maintenance is when we're assigning account titles an account number and placing them into the general ledgers in a specific order. Okay. We are going to be doing this pretty much from now on for the rest of the textbook. First writing everything down into the general journal, but then after we list it in the general journal, we then create and list them into the general ledgers. Okay? The general journal, everything was kind of all over the place. We had cash, multiple locations, supplies was in multiple locations. So if you were the owner of the business and you wanted to locate all of your cash accounts, you would really have to search pretty hard in those journals to find all your cash accounts. So now, given a general ledger, all of the cash accounts are in one place. All the supplies accounts are going to be in one place. This way it's a lot easier to find and makes it a little bit more efficient as well. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a chart of accounts. This is in the section 4-1 work together. And in the directions, which are on page 95, it tells us that we are working for a company called the Ross Company. So when you're creating a chart of accounts, the first thing you need to do is create a heading. On the heading, you list the company name, that's first. The second thing you need to do is list the name of the form. In this case, we're creating a chart of accounts. So we have the Ross Company, we have the chart of accounts, the name of the business, the name of the form. Beneath that, we're going to give ourselves a heading. The heading is called Balance Sheet Accounts. Okay? That might look a little foreign to you right now because we have never dealt with a balance sheet yet. We are eventually going to be creating a balance sheet in class, but we haven't got that far yet. So what you need to know is that the account titles that are listed below this heading are going to eventually be used to create a balance sheet. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head for now. And the first of these accounts are our assets. Okay, assets are always listed first. And assets begin with the number 1. So that's why we have left of the word asset. It's a 3-digit number, 100. And that indicates to us that all assets are going to begin with the number 1. And every number after that will be in chronological order to keep all these account titles in a specific order. Now, assets are not listed in alphabetical order. Okay, assets are listed in order of liquidity. In other words, how quickly can an asset be converted into cash? Since cash is already in the form of cash, cash is listed first. And you always will list cash first. Now, the account number that we are assigning to cash is the number 110. Notice we did not start with the number 100. We went straight from 100 to 110. The reason we're doing that is we may need to leave room for future account titles that could be added in. So you always leave room by assigning your original account numbers in increments of 10. The next account title we have is accounts receivable, and we have 2 of them. Based on the directions, there are 2 accounts receivables. So you always are going to assign the account numbers first. Since the last one was the number 110, and we're going in every 10th number, then we go from 110 to 120, and we go from 120 to 130. Okay? And the account titles, okay, since we have 2 accounts receivables, and that, again, it's in order of liquidity, but when you have 2 of the same account title, you have to then look at the name of your customer. We have Megan Alvarez, we have Tyler Link, and we always are going to list these in alphabetical order because of the last name of the customer. Since the letter A in Alvarez comes before the letter L in Link, Megan Alvarez would be listed first, and Tyler Link would be listed second. Your next account title to be listed would be supplies. Again, we're going every 10th number. And the next one we have is prepaid insurance. Again, every 10th number. So we went from 110 to 120 to 130 to 140 to 150. Okay, again, these are listed in order of liquidity. So these are not in alphabetical order unless you have 2 of the same account titles. You then list them in alphabetical order based on the last name of the customer. Okay, our next division is liabilities. Okay, our liabilities, it's slightly indented over to the right there, and liabilities all are going to begin with the number 2 for 200, and again they're a 3-digit number, so we have the number 200 next to liabilities. The first account title for liabilities is going to be accounts payable, and we begin in every 10th number. So since liabilities begin with the number 200, our first account title is going to be 210. And we happen to have 2 accounts payables. Okay, one is for Mid-City Supplies, and the next one is for Scherer Supplies. Now, since these are not people names, these are names of companies. In this case, you always you list them in alphabetical order, but you list them by the first letter of the company name. Since Mid-City Supplies comes before Scherer, M comes before S, we listed our accounts payable for Mid-City Supplies before we listed our accounts payable for Scherer Supplies. Okay, our next division is owner's equity, and those are all going to begin with the number 300. So we have the number 300 in parentheses next to owner's equity. And for owner's equity, we have capital, which is the number 310, and we have drawing, which is the number 320. So capital is always going to come before drawing. These are not in alphabetical order. Okay. Next, we have to the right, we have another category called income statement accounts. As you can see on the left, we have balance sheet accounts. These are called income statement accounts. Eventually, we are going to be creating an income statement eventually. So all of the account titles that fall under this heading are going to be our income statement accounts. The first heading for this ledger division is revenue. Okay? Revenues are all going to begin with the number 400. The only one we have is sales. Okay, and that is the number 410 is sales. And that is the only one that we have. Again, notice we're going in order by tens. Okay. After that, we have our expenses. That's the next division is expenses. And all of our expenses are they're all going to begin with the number 5. So we have them in 500. Okay, so we have the classification now of expenses. Okay, and all of our expenses are going to begin with the number 5. That's why we have the number 500 listed to the left of expenses. Now, what's unique about these, okay, is that all of our expenses are in alphabetical order. Every one of them is. Okay, we still are listing these in every 10th number. So we start with 510 to 520 to 530 to 540 to 550 based on the number of account titles that you have to work with. But you can see A comes before I, which comes before M, which comes before R, which comes before S. So every one of these expenses are listed in alphabetical order. And it's common that expenses over time will add more of these to our list. Again, that is why we list them every 10th number, so that we can fit some in between the numbers in alphabetical order if we ever needed to. And that's going to happen. So if we look at number 2 in our directions, it tells us that we're going to add 2 new account titles. Okay, one of them is a postage expense, and the other one is a utilities expense. Okay, so postage expense, since that starts with the letter P, and you're looking at your expenses on your screen, you would think the letter P would fall between miscellaneous and rent. Okay, but what number would we assign it? Since the letter P falls between miscellaneous and miscellaneous is the number 530 and rent is the number 540, well, what we're going to do is assign the middle number, the number 535. 535 falls directly between 530 and 540. So postage expense, which we're going to list below on our screen here, so we have a whole other heading to work with. So whenever we add new accounts, we don't just cross off or erase and add them in. We list them on the bottom. Okay? So where it says number 2, you're going to head that off with new accounts. Okay, it kind of goes right in the middle there. And on the far left, we're going to give a heading called account number. And to the far right, we're going to have another heading called account title. So since postage expense falls between the numbers 530 and 540, and it happens to be 535, which is directly between those two numbers, postage expense gets listed. 535 is listed under the account heading account number, and the postage expense is listed under the heading account title. The second account title we're adding in is utilities expense. Okay, utilities expense, if you look at the list of expenses, which number would we assign that? Well, U comes after the letter S. Okay, but we're not going to assign it the number 555. We're actually going to assign it the number 560. Because utilities is at the bottom of the list, we're still going every 10th number, since it's at the end of the list. So utilities expense has the number 560. Okay, so we write the account number 560 on the left, and the account title utilities expense on the right. The third step in our instructions asks us to use the account form in the working papers to open the general ledger cash. Okay, so on your paper you have a blank general ledger. It has nothing on it. Since to open it, there's 2 steps. You have to give it the account title. The next step is to give it the account number. So where it says account, we're going to give it the account title cash. And where it says account number, we're going to give it the account number 110. The reason it's 110 is if you go back to your chart of accounts that we just created a couple of seconds ago, cash had the account number 110. So now we are going to use it. So on your own, you're going to create another chart of accounts and do exactly what we do. Always list them every 10th number. When you get to your expenses, list those in alphabetical order. Okay? But use the work together as an example for the order of the account titles. I think it'll help you out a lot to look at that. You are also going to add in 2 account titles at the end, which happen to be expenses, and you're going to open up a general ledger account like we just did on your screen. Okay? So I will see you tomorrow when we move on to section 4-2, and we're going to learn how to fill out a general ledger account. Have a great evening.